Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This has become my signature style of beginning a lecture. You guys must be tired by now of that. Anyway, I think all of us need to have some signature styles or the other. The name of the program, does it sound interesting? Cross cultural understanding. See, this program, I still remember back in 2003 when I was in TCS, there was this big request from a friend of mine in Amsterdam, and he said, Shiva, there are these, I want to do a lot of business in Amsterdam, but many businesses in Amsterdam are are having a lot of questions about India, and they're very curious to learn about India, how to do business in India, and all that. So then I said, okay. I said, what do I do? And he said, why don't you come to Amsterdam and make a presentation? Wow, I had never done a presentation like this before. And then I said, okay. And, I just want to share this knowledge with you that when someone asks you to do something, when someone asks you to do something like a presentation or an essay or anything at all, and even if you have not done it at all, ever in your life, just go ahead and say, I'll do it. Because I'll tell you what, you really don't know whether you can do it or not. At worst, what will happen? You'll do it badly. That's all. But at best, what will happen? You will become popular and you will gain in confidence. So I have been holding on to this philosophy for a long time because I tell you, sometimes we have very little confidence in ourselves. Other people have more confidence in us than we have, which is why he called me all the way from Amsterdam and asked me to do this program. And that is how this program was born. Of course, the rest is absolute fun. I did this program in Amsterdam. The participants were of course the Dutch businessmen and women, and they just loved it. They just loved it, and from then on, I never looked back. For me, life in the organization was going from country to country. I'm not joking. Country to country, making presentations on cross culture. So much so that my passport started getting filled up, and all because I agreed to do a program that I knew nothing about. But it also tells you one more thing. It also helps you understand how powerful, how important cross culture can be, right? Because you look at the logic, okay? You don't have to do cross culture at all. You don't have to learn about cross culture at all if you're going to sit for the rest of your life in a small village and never having to get out. But even if it's a small village in the southernmost part of India, but if you have to go a little 500 kilometers for trading, you have to understand the other people's culture. You have to understand what is it that you must do in their house or what is it that you must not do in their house. Maybe their culture tells you that you must remove the slippers outside the house, which is something that you must respect, right? So cross-cultural understanding is actually a great program to become what I call the global citizen, especially in today's world, right? Most of us are sitting at home and doing work for clients in the US, for clients in Norway, for clients in Italy. And if we can understand their culture, their way of doing things, then it's so much easier for us to grow as a person and to grow in the organization. So if there's one skill that you must learn when you are young and continue the learning as you go along, is this cross-cultural skills. I'm going to make it very easy and interesting for you because it can be very boring otherwise. Imagine sitting down in the afternoon and reading through and looking through a video of cross culture. So I'm going to be only your facilitator in this 2-hour program. You are the learner, I'm the facilitator, right? And for every time I explain something, I have asked some questions. So all you have to do is become a learner. which means that right now, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep aside what you're doing and take a clean, fresh notebook. A nice notebook, right? Something that, and don't do some on the back of a bus ticket and all that. Some nice new notebook and learn along with me. So when I ask you a question on culture, write down some notes. Maybe we can create a website for you people just to store all your materials and show to the world that here is a person who has written so many notes on cross culture. Who knows? One of you may want to teach cross culture, right? So I hope I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to go run and fetch you. So just put it on pause and go and get a nice notebook, a nice one that you'll be proud of. Whatever works for you, blank page, small notebook, big notebook, but let it be something that you can write on, at least 40 pages minimum. Pen ready? Not pencil, pen. Yeah, I want to do pencil, fine. Okay, write down your name on the notebook. Or better still, why don't you name it as being a global citizen? Being a global citizen. All right? Okay, let's start. So, first question, what is culture? So, write down on your notebook, what is culture? So, culture is a term that has several meanings. Let's find out what. So, here the question is, what do you understand by the term culture? Answer whatever you want to say, answer it. Pause, answer. Answer the questions. All right. Now that you have answered the question, let's see what is my definition. It doesn't have to be yours. So I am saying we can think of culture as a set of shared beliefs, which means suppose there are 100 people here, about 20 of us share some beliefs, some values, some norms and practices. And 20 others similarly. So therefore there are 5 cultures, 2020, 2020. And each of them has their own shared beliefs, their own values, their own norms. So 20 of us will say, before you come to my house, you must remove your slippers. The other 20 may say that when you talk to an elder person, you must stand up and talk. The other 20 may say that when you shake hands, your handshake should be firm. The fourth group may say that you should never ask questions of all elders. The fifth group may say that whenever I call for a meeting, you must come on time. So all of us are sharing our beliefs, norms, practices, etc. And therefore there is a difference, but at the same time, there's a commonality between these 20 people and there's a difference between these groups. A lot of other definitions also. So shared values, what does it mean? That I learned from earlier generations. How do I know that you must remove? How do I know that I must, people who come to my house must remove their slippers? Did I invent it? No, because my father told me. How did my father know? Because his father told him. Well, how did he know? Because my great-grandfather told him. And so generation to generation to generation, we start following culture. Brilliant, no? Such beautiful. I mean, aren't you getting excited about learning what this subject is? And there's so much more to come. The results in common attitude, this results in common attitudes, codes of conduct and expectations that subconsciously guide. So now automatically, I'm sure many of you will identify me with this, automatically when you start coming to the house, you remove your slippers. Even in those houses where you don't have remove your slippers outside, you will start removing it. Actually, they will say, no, it's okay, please come in with slippers. You'll say, no, it's okay, I'll remove my slippers. So it becomes subconscious. The culture becomes subconscious. We're not born with the culture, but are born into it. When I'm named, I'm not saying, oh, this fellow will be so and so culture. No, I'm born into a culture. And we gradually internalize it through the socialization. So the more and more we are with our own people, with my parents, my brothers, my sisters and all that, I slowly get it internalized. Fine. So this is culture. I'm very interested to know what you think. Now what you do, go back to your notebook and think about what is culture. Maybe with an example. Now, there's one more interesting question for you. Think about your visit to another country or state or to a different culture. So every one of you has, I'm definite, don't say no, please. Every one of you definitely has traveled to a different culture, another culture. Some of you may have gone abroad. Some of you may have gone in India itself. You may have gone to Maharashtra. If you are from South India, you may have gone to Tamil Nadu. You may have gone to Maharashtra. If you are from Maharashtra, you may have come to Tamil Nadu, to Karnataka, Kerala. You know, India is such a brilliant country, right? Such a brilliant country for learning cross culture. There is so many cultures in India, so many, and every culture is different. You must have seen those maps, right? Festivals of India, food of India. So brilliant to learn about culture in India. It's. I'm sure most people in the world are jealous of us because of Indians because we are able to learn it like that. First-hand information. So think of when you went to a different culture, either abroad or out of the state or to a different culture completely. Yeah. So write that. Just write it down. I had gone to US. I had gone to Norway. I had gone to Japan. I went for a northeastern tour. I went for a Maharashtrian tour. Whatever it is. What were the physical differences you noticed? Food. What is the difference in food? Your food, the other culture's food. Water, or the way they gave you water. The shops, were they different? Streets. For me, when I went to the US, of course, the biggest shock I got was there was no water in my room. Normally, in an Indian hotel, you have those water bottles, right? So I called up the reception. I said, "Excuse me, I need some water." So the receptionist says, "Open the tap and drink the water." I said, "Oh, because I hadn't opened the tap for such a long time to drink water. I'm used to those Bisleri cans, right?" The food, of course, completely different because there the food is very dry food, while Indian food is lot of varieties. The food is just one hamburger. That's it, right? You just have to eat it and or a sandwich or something like that. Shops in the US really different. Here, I go outside my house. I can my the joke my friend has is outside my house. I live in a very busy place called Mylapore in Madras. 10 minutes. Suppose suddenly somebody calls you and say, "Boss, I must conduct one Indian wedding." In 10 minutes, you can buy everything for the wedding. In 10 minutes, I'm not joking. But in the US, all the shops are clustered together. Even if you have to buy a small packet of salt or sugar, you have to take the car and go all the way to buy that. So therefore, there's a difference in the way the shopping is done there, shopping is done here. So now you have to do that in your notebook, any culture at all. Just pause the video and start. And this is what you're going to be doing right through this video. All right? Okay. Actually, you know what? I have a good idea. Why don't you call, if you have young people at home, sister, but even old, why young? Everyone at home, sit around and start this exercise. Seriously, because it's such a lovely learning, right? Especially you have college going kids in the house or somebody who's just joined an organization, somebody who's working abroad, call that person, say, let's all do this program together. And so you can exchange. You can say, you know what, when we went there, when we went to Italy, this is what we saw. So everyone can contribute to this exercise. Yeah? Do you want to do that? Please do. What are the sensory differences? Sensory in the sense, what are the different sounds? What are the smells? What is the climate, hygiene, sights, etc.? For instance, I think it was in Sweden. I think yes, Sweden. I've checked into a hotel, and around 10 o'clock in the night, it was dead silent. Dead silent. Not even a pin drop. I could have heard a pin drop. Pin drop silence. And you won't believe it, I could not sleep. Normally, Normally, for sleeping, you need silence, right? This was so silent that I just could not sleep. Then, of course, because all of us are very creative, you know what I did? I just put on the TV. I didn't understand the language that was going on in the TV, but the TV was, I just put it on low volume. So there was some sound in the room and I slept soundly. So, sites, any sites, I'm sure many of you will find. I just gave you an example. So, whatever differences that you found, you write it down in your notebook now. What were the sensory differences that you experienced? Done? Okay. What were the cultural differences that struck you? Customs, manners, beliefs, gestures, attitudes. For instance, in Japan, I haven't been to Japan yet, but I know many of my friends tell me that you have to bow down when you see another person. So there is a difference in the manners. We'll come to the others later on. I'm just trying to give you an example so it inspires you to write down some examples. Attitudes, of course, I can talk all day long. Gestures, I can talk all day long, right? There are some gestures that are allowed. There are some gestures that are not allowed. For example, in India, my mother will keep scolding me if I put my one leg over the other leg. She'll keep scolding me. But when I go to US or Italy or something, it may not be such a big problem. So a child growing up in Sweden and a child growing up in India, they may have a cultural difference in the gestures, in their body language. So the Swedish child may not find it a problem to do one leg over the other in front of my mother, but the Indian child will take care not to do it in Sweden, even though it's not relevant there, right? So that's what we're talking about. Look how already your mind is starting to change, right? You know, sorry for the aside, but cross culture broadens your mind. Just completely, you must have seen those videos, right, of going outside the earth and looking at the earth from the top, and then it keeps zeroing in. Cross culture makes you a very broad minded person. And the very important thing that happened to me in cross culture, I stopped being judgmental. I stopped. I stopped being judgmental. I never can say this culture is better, that culture is better. I cannot say that. Every culture, like we defined, has some reasons for it. And all we are doing is looking at other cultures, observing other cultures, understanding cultures, not necessarily agreeing with the other cultures. That's so important to learn when you're learning cross culture. You don't have to agree with anyone at all. You can keep your culture, you can follow your culture, and you must. There's no need to change because of someone else. But it's a great observation. It's like a biologist, right? What does a biologist do? He looks at a leaf, observes. Similarly, you are an observer of different cultures and you look at the practices and beliefs and norms and manners. This is a brilliant tool to understand cross culture. It's called the iceberg principle. So, what is the iceberg principle? What is the iceberg principle? What is an iceberg? Anyone? The iceberg, why is, almost for everything you have the iceberg principle. Systems thinking, we have an iceberg principle. Because the iceberg is a brilliant way to depict what you understand and what you don't understand. Because 9/10 of the iceberg is outside the water. 9/10 of the iceberg is under the water. Which means what you see is different from what you don't see. You don't see 9/10 while you see only 1/10. And most of the time, we make our judgments based on what we see. We don't try to dive deep under the water to find out the reason for what is on top of the water. Brilliant. Look at the simple principle. So, what you see in a culture is language. You see a language, you see food, you see dress. I'm just trying to get the. What you don't see are all these. How do cultures approach work? What are the priorities of people in different cultures. Are some cultures more aggressive than others? How do they solve problems in cultures? What is the meaning of what does it mean to be to have privacy in other cultures? In some cultures, you can't go to their house without being invited, right? What is the what is the concept of time? In some cultures, time is scarce. We'll come to that. Time is scarce. Time is plentiful. How do you communicate? Who do you communicate with? And process improvement are these are things we don't see. But what we normally see and comment and think that the other culture is all about is food, customs. This is all we see. So the iceberg principle is a brilliant way to understand that cross culture. For understanding cross culture, you have to look under the water. The reasons for what is above the water is always under the water. So diving under the water is important. So when you go to France and you listen and you look at a particular dress, instead of making a judgment saying, no, no, this dress is not nice, come down under the water and find out why the dress is like that. There must be some cultural reason, right? So that was the iceberg principle.